level, because it really is more of a county level. The county commissioners set the mill levy for property taxes. We get some complaints about property taxes at the state level, but since it's more of a county issue, there's not really a whole lot we can do about it. However, there have been some proposals and some things that we've been voting on. One of those proposals we voted on this week. It's basically a bill that would place a 3% cap in property tax revenue on the counties, with some exceptions such as construction and certain economic development programs would be exceptions to that. But basically, if a county increases property tax revenue by more than 3% in a year, they would be subject to a protest petition. Basically, the citizens of that county would have to go around and they would have to gather petitions in order to block that property tax increase of more than 3%. If they gather petitions of 5% of the voters who voted in the last election, and they can basically force the county commissioners to go back and present a new budget that doesn't increase property taxes by any more than 3%. And so that's basically what it does. It's basically trying to prevent some of these larger property tax increases that we've seen over the years. I mean, we've seen instances where some counties have actually increased property taxes by over 10%, and in my opinion, that isn't really sustainable. I do understand the perspective of local government, that we don't want to go too far with interfering with local governments, because, as Republicans, we generally have supported local government. We haven't wanted the state to interfere in the affairs of local governments, but we've just gotten so many complaints about property taxes that we still feel like we have to do something, even though we don't really like interfering in the affairs of local governments. One thing I would say is that I do think that local government should have more flexibility when it comes to sales taxes, because when it comes to sales taxes, anytime that a county wants to increase their sales tax rate, they actually have to come to us. They have to come to the legislature, and we have to actually vote to allow them to increase sales taxes. I think we need to end that policy. I think if a county wants to increase their sales tax rate, they should be allowed to do that. I don't think the state should be involved in that. And so that would give the counties a little bit more flexibility, and it's primarily property taxes that people complain to me about, and not very many people complain about sales taxes. So I think if we're going to put some sort of a cap on property taxes, we need to provide more flexibility for the counties when it comes to sales taxes. In the Senate, they voted on and they passed a bill to place a cap on appraisal increases. It's basically a cap that would cap appraisal increases at 3%. I've gotten quite a few complaints from my constituents, seems like particularly in Rice County, about appraisal increases. I've had people tell me that their appraisals have gone up by as much as 30% in 1 year, and a lot of people that are on fixed incomes simply can't afford that big of an appraisal increase. I understand some of the arguments against the appraisal or the cap on appraisals, because it wouldn't necessarily limit the overall property tax rate, because we wouldn't be imposing any caps or any limits in that bill when it comes to the mill levy, and so the counties could still increase the mill levy as high as they want to. And so it wouldn't necessarily cap property tax increases overall. It would basically just make it to where certain people wouldn't be targeted with huge property taxes increases all in 1 year. If they wouldn't have a 30% increase on the valuation